Welcome everybody to this panel. I'll start with thanking the hosts, Center for Digital Excellence and Communications here, and this Summit DX Summit 3.0. So my name is Bharat Maheshwari, and I am a professor here at the University of Windsor in Canada. And tell you a little bit about Windsor, it is the automotive capital of Canada. Uh, it is the place where the first Model T, the iconic Ford car, the largest selling car ever in the world, 25 million plus units was made. So you can pinpoint Windsor next to Detroit. Uh, but we are known for about 1,400 plus companies in automotive, and we are known for doing a lot in automotive world and being part of that North American automotive supply chain. So if you may have heard about our border crossing issues and Canadian issues lately, the border we are on is the largest commercial border. And automotive parts cross Canada and US about 6 times, and then millions of cars are made. So to set the stage, I am part of a faculty here at University of Windsor and get to work with a lot of auto companies, executives, and my students join those companies. So I'm really pleased to be part of this panel. And also, two of my best interests, Canada and India, come together here. So I'm so really happy to be part of this as well. And what we will be talking about today is possibilities with Indo-Canadian supply chain in automotive sector, especially with the focus on digital technologies. I know this sector is very ripe. There are possibilities galore. Uh, Modern world supply chains are competing. Emphasis has shifted to supply chain resilience. COVID has taught us many lessons as well. India is exploding on the world stage with so much emphasis on manufacturing. Here is a great opportunity to be part of the international world in manufacturing by entering these supply chains. But what is important here is what can digital technologies do? Can they help us in facilitating new collaborations and innovations in supply chain? And that's where this panel comes in. We have panelists who are very, very experienced in manufacturing and technology and have global exposure. So what we can do is introduce the panelists and have some questions to start with. But this forum will be more interactive and more useful if we can have some questions come to us from the audience, which we can answer. And we can go round with questions. We can have panelists answer from their experience and even more. These panels are great. I have held many of them before. I always invite experienced people to my classroom, but they are a beginning of an end. We get a connection, we get ideas, but these panels don't have to be end with this 1 hour. Those ideas can continue and we can have the interaction going. And that's where the big role centers of excellences like our host provide, because these are associations where you guys can interact, you guys can continue to work with. So with that, I would like to introduce our panelists. No order per se. And we have Darren Mitchell. You can see the manufacturing logo behind him. And Darren, for the last 23 years, has owned a global manufacturing company, manufacturing highway trailers. Darren today has created a digital training platform for manufacturers. So he's sharing his expertise that way, a place where manufacturers can see videos and get the best practices on what's going on in the world. Thank you, Darren, for joining us today. Then we have Deepak Verma. Deepak, headquartered in Ottawa, he is representing a company called 5G Energy. Deepak is a delivery director and executive and have seen many implementations of technological solutions, IoT-based solutions in manufacturing. So will be the person who has experienced right way the technology is working in quality management, asset management, energy management for the firms, helping them excel. Then we have Randy. Randy owns Villasis Group. He has been an experienced auto executive. Right now, he is heading a mold company, as well as he is part of some special purpose acquisition companies, helping buyers, sellers, investors in automotive industries connect, and has years and years of experience. And I have Gaurav Malik, and we have Ms. Kavita Nair Rudra from CII, Center of Digital Excellence, and Dr. Colonel Zaidi, who has helped us put together this event. So thank you, everyone, every panelist for joining, and thank you, audience, for coming together. So to initiate this event, I would put some questions of mine, and then we can go on with more questions as we go around. So the idea of this event is to get a handle on possibilities in collaboration between India and Canada in supply chain, automotive supply chain. And I would situate that with our current collaboration. India and Canada is a possibility, but India and US and Mexico is a seamless integrated supply chain. So SMEs can connect with SMEs across the border. SMEs can form consortiums and supply to all the OEMs active in North America. North America is still a very large market for automotive. I think still the largest. But India is an emerging market. The number of cars sold are increasing every year. Technology requirements are increasing every year. Standards are coming every year. So definitely new inputs are required to maintain the quality product design needs for the cars. Consumers are very demanding across the world, so in India as well. Can digital technologies now make it possible for Indian and Canadian SMEs to collaborate and compete in the global supply chain? Why do I ask that? Is because with the large firms, it is already happening. But real development will come if we get the SMEs to collaborate as well and take part, and that will be exploding value for everyone. COVID has helped us adopt digital technologies faster. We are an example here. We are all sitting in our comfort zones and connecting internationally. So what are the possibilities? So I would start with a general question to the panel. In what ways are digital technologies creating new collaboration opportunities for companies in the automotive sector? And I'll open it to any panelist who would like to take it first.
All right, we're not a shy bunch. Let's just jump in. Bharat, thank you for the nice introduction, and it's an honor to be in front of the audience today and be sitting on the panel with the rest of the experts who dwarf my expertise. I'm going to come at this from the viewpoint as an automotive manufacturer. I've been manufacturing highway trailers for the last 23 years, and a lot of the much larger companies have very high-level integrated supply chains, which is great. The opportunity that exists today, and I'm going to give you a very real-world example that happens to me all the time. A very simple example, we would get a change order for one of our products that we were putting out the door. So they would want a different type of belting, they would want an electronic power pack, they would want specific type of lighting. So what happens is when you're not one of those mega corporations and you're a smaller business like my own manufacturing, is what happens is, and this is exactly what happens in the manufacturing mindset, you have a purchasing team. And the purchasing team, every time you want to stray from the path, you need to look to a new supplier. So traditionally what you would do is you would go back to your existing supply chain which has many levels of connections through it. And they would, over weeks, come back to you and say, yes, we have the part number you're looking for, or no, we don't have the part number that you're looking for. So what's been happening over the last 10 years is we have this little device here. So when you go back to your team and ask for a change for one of those additional items, you're now looking for a new supplier anywhere in the world today. And what happens is we would start finding new suppliers for mud flaps in England. We would find that belting we were looking for in South Korea. What I would suggest is a massive opportunity to connect not the very large integrated companies that are out there, is to be found on this device, because the world we live in today, as long as it's high quality, it's what we want, where we want, when we want it, we care far less about where it came from. The opportunity is, how do you get found by those manufacturers that you can partner with, because we're all part of that global supply chain. This didn't exist 20 years ago, and I'm so glad it exists today. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a business.
If I can, hi, thank you to again for the opportunity to be here with this great panel and to speak. I appreciate it to the CII and to Tata as well for allowing us this forum to speak. Like I said, with this great team that we have here built in from Canada. And further to Darren's point, I can definitely understand and hear where he's coming from as well myself. Being able to develop literally from the shop floor and work my way up into owning my company now. So I've been out both in automotive, and I have seen the aerospace sector as well at the OEM level. And it is you want to call them the smaller guys, or the smaller companies who tend to have the constraints when it comes to capacity and being out there in the world. So as you mentioned with the cell phone and being connected, yeah, we have these infrastructures within our in the large organizations who are already all set up and ready to go, and they already have people waiting and companies waiting at their doorstep to provide that service for Plan B and Plan C if Plan A doesn't work out. But in a sense of the smaller companies, which I can tell you do make up a majority of actual business in the world, the smaller companies, they don't have this infrastructure capacity internally. So when we talk about the digital era and digitalization and finding opportunities to do that within these smaller organizations, it's imperative that we actually open up the door to have these collaborations, whether it's within country or even outside of country. So speaking to India and Canada, we have to, in a sense, be a little bit vulnerable and be open to have these collaborations and build this trust within the organizations, because we do compete. Business is about competition. It's about satisfying the customer. It's also making some profit while you're doing that. But I think when we go to digital, we got to find a way to almost collaborate, to be able to help each other out in a sense, to understand who does what and where, and to just build up and develop our businesses that way. So if we do have this kind of cohesive type of approach, I think the digitalization will be much more smoother within our organizations. And I think that communication gap is something that definitely we can really attack. And I think that's some low-hanging fruit. And once we start doing some of that, I think those opportunities where we need to turn left or right to find a solution, I think reaching, whether it's across the border or across the continent to neighbors such as India from Canada, I think it'll be a lot more smoother, right? Instead of waiting, like Darren said, something waiting for days and weeks to get a simple reply for something that you can be done quickly if we just, like I said, open ourselves up and try to make these collaborations upfront if possible.
Thanks, Darren and Andy, for your thoughts. And I think there's one common thread that seems to be running in both what Darren and Randy said. I think this digitization has sort of, basically they say, geography is now history. So there's no barrier as such. So, but one thread that seems to be coming through, and which is what even I do think, is that this has sort of democratized the entire ecosystem, maybe to a large extent. Some of the things which only larger players used to have access to, now anybody, any small or medium enterprise or anybody has an access to a lot of information. And I think the digitization should be pursued in such a fashion that this percolates down to the next level, to the tier one, so the tier two suppliers. It could be either way. We can have Canadian suppliers supplying to the Indian auto majors, or the other way around. But that's one aspect. But there is another aspect where I look in is in terms of expertise. For instance, tooling is one area where if a tool design, maybe Randy has some experience in that. Can Indian companies access the expertise of say a tool designer, or I need to design a foundry, for instance? Do we have expertise? Can I say dip into the expertise of specific expertise? Canada is one example, but anywhere. So the digitization, to my mind, is not is while a large part of it can be to get into the supply chain. I do see a lot of uh, opportunities for collaboration even in other areas which may not necessarily be the supply of materials. That definitely does form a big part of the opportunity that is opened up. So to my mind, I think the biggest thing that digitization does, and hence, since this is now open to a much larger audience, the opportunity for collaboration also increases that much, multifold. So the number of people, number of opportunities, number of companies that one can collaborate with is much more. And as this device, as Darren said, is the key to the entire thing. And the general infrastructure in terms of connectivity and other things in India have improved, and that should really help us in furthering this collaboration. You're on mute, Bharat.
Sorry, I think I'm seeing a framework here in 3 responses. Darren started with a very key point, discoverability. So as a SME, am I discoverable? Can people around the world find me? And do I have anything to display quality? Something where I can validate that I can provide that quality needed, because what it is needed to is to build trust, where Randy came in, collaboration and cohesive approach. And again, without that, partnerships cannot develop. And then Deepak was taking us to a next level. Hey, can we start sharing expertise? For, which is, and the first 2 are the basic conditions for that. But I see a cohesion among the panelists. And Gaurav, please chime in if you have to add something here.
Let me try to build on what Deepak and Darren and Randy, and I think you brought up a good summary, Bharat, on discoverability and what the panel was saying. First of all, thank you for inviting us from Successive Technologies. Thank you, the DX team from CII. What I would like to add, given I come from a technology background, right, and technology solves a lot of problems in digitization as well. When it comes to collaboration, if you look at B2C world, the B2C world has come from telephone to radio to television to mobile. For the past decade, from 2011 to 2020, it has become a social blast that we have seen. People are connected all over, from personal connections, LinkedIn connections, B2C connections. But the B2B world has not yet evolved when it comes to the social collaboration. And that is something I think that can be easily done between the India and the Canadian companies. Like what Darren was saying, right? There is a change request or a change order that come in, and the suppliers might not have it, or they might not even know how to manufacture. If we create a social platform for the supply chain within the automotive industry between India and Canada, this should solve a lot of problem. What I'm referring to a concept is also crowdsourcing. So if all we need is a platform where people are able to generate ideas, ask questions, and someone somewhere in the world will answer it right away. And that would not only solve the problems of the questions that we have, the troubles that we are facing, but also it will include the whole encyclopedia and knowledge base. So you don't really have to depend on a real-time answer. You should be able to also, search within the collaboration platform that can be created between the two countries.
That would be a great idea, and I think that will solve a lot of discoverability issues and give us a lot of examples or context around the quality and lead to cohesive approach and trust building. Has anybody, Rudra, you want to add something to it?
Yes, yes. Hey, thanks again for inviting me. I come from the again a technology background, but I might take a little bit a tangential comment on call it as a discoverability and all the way to the collaborative design. Right at the end of it, um, certain call them as a geopolitical situations. Um, where exactly the component is getting sourced from, that has to be disclosed, not just the origin, all the way on the logistics front, where exactly the component travels through. Some of the policies in India specifically, other countries have done it already. Uh, they would like to know where is this coming from, and where all it travels through, right? Um, and while the discoverability is quick, and at the same time the design collaboration can happen, it also comes with the upcoming these policies, which could be considered as a competitive disadvantage, right? And if I'm going to disclose all the sources of my components of the suppliers, how do I protect myself, right? So some of this is a point that has come up, and related to this, one more related to the security in the context of electronics. I'll chime in the subsequent minutes that come along. But I just wanted to give you, there is a little bit of an information sharing that comes across as a challenge sometimes.
I think that's a very important point. It's an elephant in the room. Today itself, we are listening news of conflict in Europe. So conflicts in geopolitical situation is coming along more now after 20, 25 years or more. So yes, those aspects are there, and then those aspects can be resolved with governments putting us together as well. So I see the value in this initiative because it is being run at the government levels as well. To move forward, before we go into some other details, I would ask the panelists, what is their estimation of the size of the opportunity we have, and put into perspective, what are we looking at for the businesses? What kind of opportunities in real dollar terms or rupee terms, if what we are saying happens, Indian companies can discover Canadian companies in automotive, and Canadian companies can discover Indian companies in automotive, and move ahead in the partnership to collaboration, expertise exchange, that comfort level. And again, we had a great idea from Gaurav of having a platform for the B2B understanding and B2B coming together. That's a great idea as well, while keeping in mind the geopolitical considerations. Still, what is the opportunity we have?
I'll go ahead and chime in. I'd say for one, just I guess through some of my experiences and just some of the dealings I have already. And if we're talking particularly, let's say with India and Canada, I mean it's tremendous. I mean it's not a secret that India is a powerhouse in many areas. There's history in India. There's a lot of expertise in India. The population, the training and development, the education. So there's a lot of factors that are in line with the needs I think the world to be able to utilize. Now it's a matter of how do we project that? You know, how do we get that out into the world? How does government play into that? How does you know, the OEMs play into that? And how do we, instead of looking at, as I mentioned earlier, as just a competition-based business where we're trying to attract and you know make business for our customers, but also make profit? How do we, at the end of the day, how do we change, you know, this communication or the lack of exposure to international countries and companies that want to actually collaborate with the type of expertise that India already has? So this is one of the main points that I think we definitely need to consider as we move into a digitalized world. Now, adding digitalized to it, I think can fast forward this, and to the point of having a B2B. This is something as well that we've heard the term also matchmaking, if you will, and it's events like this as well, and many others that have come out of it, that it's just a matter of, you know, being able to understand what is going on. You know, give some examples of some best practices that are already in place. There's another avenue as well to be able to communicate what is going on. Because, like I said, there's a lot of business already happening within India, in Canada, I'm sure. It's just what's the amount that is happening today versus what the potential can be. And I know the question was, what is the potential? And what I see is it's tremendous. I mean, there's many synergies between Canada and India. There's a long history there already. And it's just a matter, like I said, of kind of pivoting, if you will, with our North American, in Canada in general, but North American, how we source, how we look at supply chains, utilizing, you know, where are our exports going to, and how can we possibly, you know, instead of focusing on a certain geographical location in another part of the world to help support our exports, how can we pivot and kind of say, hey, what is India? Can India offer something to us in another form that can help us actually even gain more export and more business as well elsewhere in the world? So it's just a matter of, when you come down to it, it's a matter of going back to my original point. It's actually building that trust. It's building those relationships, understanding who is out there, and you gotta basically just take the bike for a ride, in a sense. And again, building those first initial steps and building that relationship and that trust and sharing information. It's gotta always be a two-way street. We got to understand that it's a 50-50. We understand there's going to be some pros and cons in it, and we just have to be open and honest to talk about, as things get bumpy, to talk about it and not just to let those things fester as well. So these, I'd say, would be some of the main points, and I think in the opportunities that lie between our countries.
Yes, Deepak.
I think if you're looking at numbers, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think I read somewhere that the Indian auto industry would be to the size of 300 billion in the next 3 to 5 years, and maybe add some other aspects of tooling and other things which go into the 300 billion is the sales, the automotive sector. So a lot of other additional things. We're looking at a 350 billion market, and I'm sure as Randy said, it's to be a two-way market, two-way street, and it's not only that the Canadian companies have access to the Indian market. I'm sure there are going to be opportunities other way around also. So we're looking at say very conservatively a 500 billion market, and if you say 5% of that, even if you look at it, so that's what it looks like from a dollar terms. But to go anywhere near that 5%, 1% or 2% or whatever it is, the most important thing that needs to be done, into my mind, one is, as Randy said, the trust which need to be built up. And secondly, I feel that we should look at some low-hanging fruit, an area where this collaboration can be showcased and a success story displayed as we speak. I'm sure a lot of people like Darren who may want to say procure something from India, but they're still hesitant for whatever reason. And if we can identify some low-hanging fruit, some area, specific area, niche area. Now, I'm not an expert in what would be the best lowest common denominator that we have on that. But if we can work on that, I think we should be able to show some results, and then tapping this, whatever the numbers that I said, those numbers are too huge to even dream about. But that is a potential that I see as we go forward.
Thanks, Deepak. Anybody else wants to chime in here?
Yeah, thanks, Bharat. I'm going to speak directly to all the manufacturers that are on this call right now, and I think this will tie up some of the comments we just had. For the last 23 years, I was asked to be like Toyota. I was asked to be like John Deere. I was asked to be like Kubota. And the challenge for me as a manufacturer was, one, I couldn't be those companies. There was no hope in hell of me becoming one of those companies. And secondly, it was hard to equal their patterns, their business operations, and their efficiencies while people are telling me to do that while I'm currently being punched in the face. So being a manufacturer today is hard. You have timelines, you have tolerances, you have on-time deliveries, you have your own supply chain disruptions. And every time I would go and meet with my competitors who would be out of places like Ohio, when I would meet with them in a very friendly way, I would learn that they had hundreds of millions of dollars in CapEx spending. They owned their supply chains. So they owned the aluminum extruder that was next door. They were next door to their customer base, and they were happy running at 7% margins. So literally day one in my manufacturing business, I was never set up to win. And the challenge that posed to me is we had to start rethinking the nature of what we were manufacturing in the first place, and understanding that manufacturing is a process, but manufacturing is also a business. So if anybody out there has a pen and paper handy, I'll give you the 3 things that you may want to write down from someone who's been there for the last 23 years on a global stage. 1, if you're going to move forward with anything we've talked about today in a meaningful way for your business, you have to have brand. And brand for your company means you've done all of those best practices so that when I see your company name, it exudes trust. So go talk to guys like Deepak today and say, Deepak, help me. How do we meet all of our commitments and show people we can be world class? That is the basis of which people are trying to tell you this today in the last 3 days of your conference. You need to exude world class in your manufacturing business. This is how you move forward, and don't always become the lowest cost manufacturer out there. Otherwise, you're on a treadmill effect to death. The second thing that you need to do is you need to build innovation into your business. So once you've got that first layer of confidence, the world needs to start to see you as the doctor, as the problem solver moving forward, because now you just became valuable to me. So A, you've exhibited trust, and B, you are starting to be seen as a partner that we can collaborate on, that you don't just look like everyone else. And the last thing that you need to do out of those 3 things, so the first one is brand, the first one is innovation, the third one is digital connection. Because you may currently have 3 suppliers, you may be supplying 3 companies, you need to move outside of that realm so you can start providing solutions for other companies across the world. India is a massive market that I can't comprehend, that is 1.4 billion people today. But there may be opportunities with the other 7.8 billion people in the rest of the world. And you can do that through making those digital connections. And before anybody out there shuts off their mind and says, well, Darren, it must be nice to be you, I have to share with you that I grew my manufacturing business on an island in the Atlantic Ocean that is not even part of North America or next to North America, on an island. So we physically had to bring stuff in from all parts of the world to try and compete. And when I sold my business last Christmas, we were running at 48% margin. And again, we started with an attitude of we need to think about the manufacturing operations is not just a process, but it's also a business. And if you have those three things and plug them into the good things that we've been talking about today, that's how you're going to form those meaningful relationships and stop. Some days I feel like a grunt and I'm getting beat up with people always yelling at me on time, hurry up, all those challenging things we have to be with, because I think India has so much to offer the world. Half of my engineering team came from India. There is so much opportunity out there for India today. That would be the recipe for success, to plug into some of those things we talk about. And I apologize for being excited about this, but I just know there's so much opportunity that's out there. What you don't want to do is swim around in the same pool and beat yourself up thinking that's the only opportunity that's out there for you. So on that note, I'm going to be quiet, but like I said, it's just from one manufacturer to another.
Thank you, Darren. It was really insightful. I want to enhance the question I raised earlier to put into perspective the size of opportunity. And Darren actually helped me do that. He said it's not only just 1.4 billion people in India, or we have 35, 36 million people here. It's the world. And when we integrate supply chains, when we get companies together across, we have an opportunity to reach out to the world, 7.8 billion people. And that's where my next question goes. And I can probably point it to Randy. Randy, you have experience working with multi-locational facilities. And how can Canadian and Indian companies come together and collaborate to offer global solutions? And to put in perspective, Rudra also pointed out that there are issues happening with geopolitical situations. And let's see, the world goes the way of another Cold War. I do not want it, but might happen the way things are going. So alliances will come back again. We have a very successful alliance in North America. Canada, India, Mexico, Canada, US, and Mexico compete all together. But how can we do something like India and Canada can collaborate and reach out to a market in Japan or in Mexico or in Brazil? Because that opportunity is still there. We're talking about India and Canada, but India, Canada coming together opens up the world as Darren had put together. So Randy, what is your thought on it? And other panelists can also chime in.
If I may, I mean, we're all talking, and we let's be honest, there is tremendous amounts of opportunities, whether it's between Canada and India and just in general around the world. There's lots going on, and we know there's a lot going on the political side of things, between nations and between continents. Just politics is not my thing, so I won't go there. But sticking to business. The one thing I can say is we're talking all good. We're talking great. There's opportunities, manufacturing. But the one thing we have to talk about is that elephant in the room, which is regret. We definitely don't want to have any regrets as we start, moving forward. We're thinking today. We're thinking tomorrow. We're thinking next month, next year. But what about 5 years from now? What about 15 years from now? Right? How is it going to look then? So the one point I want to really make as well is we need to start strong. We need to really have the visibility to how we're actually developing these supply chains. So take it, for instance, if we're continuing developing Canada and India, we got to be open and honest and understanding how is this trade, how is this kind of trade, and how is this kind of supply chain being developed? We see a lot of times around the world, after 5, 10, 15 years, we start looking back and we're like, wow, this bilateral trade between these nations is completely skewed. So we got to be really, delicate and be mindful of how we develop the supply chain. And again, going back to my point, we got to really make sure that it is a kind of a 50-50 one. We're not going to get exactly 50-50, whether 40-60, whatever the case may be. But we really got to make sure that both countries that are involved, or both nations, both continents, whatever the case may be, we got to make sure that there is a two-way street. Like I mentioned earlier, we all got to be winning in a sense, right? At the end of the day, whether it's 5, 10, 15 years from now, we don't want to look at it and say, wow, there's one country, having all these exports and doing great, while we're looking at ourselves and we kind of build a situation where we have all our eggs in one basket. So we got to take this different approach with how we build it. And there's a lot of learnings that have gone on. There's a lot of examples, not to dive into them, but there's a lot of examples that allow us to educate ourselves with how we want to go forward with developing this kind of a relationship in the supply chain. Now, another point is about Darren mentioned about, you know, he's being expected, and I'm sure he's not the only one. And I've even felt it myself, and I've seen it being in a large, American-based OEM aerospace company. I mean, 186,000 employees worldwide. At the time I was at the company, $90 billion USD revenue streaming organization. So I've seen what he's talking about. I've been involved, and I've seen that level. And they are kind of scouring, you know, these OEMs, they are scouring who's out there, who has the infrastructure, who has the money to spend. And unfortunately, not all of them do, unless they have a really close eye, really good relationship built with an OEM. So to that point, I think that one thing that we have to watch and be mindful is, and that's adding to what Darren mentioned about these smaller companies kind of feeling choked, if you will, is the mergers and acquisitions aspect, which is something I do with my company now. For example, I'll give you a number. In 2020, just in the USA alone, there was about 17,000 M&A transactions in the USA. Just put that into context, 17,000 M&A. I would think out of those 17,000 just in the US based alone in 2020, I'd say a good handful of those are for reasons that are contributing to Darren and other manufacturers' frustrations, right? It's kind of these other things that are going around behind the scenes that tend to have the ripple effect on the smaller organizations. And that's why we kind of feel like we have nowhere to turn. And it's because we are between a rock and a hard place. We really don't have anywhere to turn because we're not understanding of what is really going on in other parts, in other aspects, in other avenues that really affect our bottom line in our business. So the merger and acquisition piece as well is something to be mindful of and incorporate that into building our supply chain, into digitalization and understanding, hey, we have these different factors. Let's keep an eye on them. Let's make these post-it notes on our wall. Let's make sure we keep an eye on these daily, and how are they integrating into our development of building our businesses and building the supply chain digitally. And just to your point, yeah, I mean, I think I talked a bit about it. We have to build the supply chain and to be, you know, building it with, for instance, India and Canada. We have to understand what are the outside forces. What are the outside forces that could potentially and are going to be a deterrent, are going to affect how we build this supply chain and how we digitalize. So I'd say is being mindful of the outside sources is definitely a priority, and always making sure that, you know, these outside forces don't unintentionally hinder what we're trying to develop. And as well as, like I mentioned earlier, we definitely have to be 50-50. We have to be mindful of, you know, it's a two-way street. We don't want any regrets down the road. We don't want anything set up where we're looking at the big map after 10, 15 years and saying, wow, like this is very skewed. And all the efforts and the trust and the relationships that were built to happen, and, you know, looking at it when things just keep fast forwarding. We all know 24 hours feels like a minute nowadays. And when you're in manufacturing, it's even less. So 10, 15 years from now can happen very fast. And we definitely want to make sure we're all taking a piece of the pie, right?
Thanks, Randy. I think we have looked at the opportunity. We have looked at possibilities of doing global solutions, keeping the global solutions in mind that Randy expanded. I want to go on to another aspect which is important. And I'll probably go to Darren for that. He has run a manufacturing operation. He is helping upgrade capabilities in manufacturing operations. And again, the question is going to Deepak as well on that, because he's been providing solutions and technological solutions to upgrade, improve. So both the panelists I'll go to. And again, we're seeing a lot of 4.0 things coming in, IoTs coming in, basic manufacturing aspects are now being managed by data, and a lot of upgrades are possible. So Darren, and then to Deepak, how are you seeing these digital technologies helping us achieve what we want to in the real world?
So baseline thought process on this is, and picking up on something Randy said about where's this going in the future, I think we also have to realize that we're all global manufacturers today. Whether we want to ignore it or not, you have to accept that you are a global manufacturer. And I was always impressed. So I set up manufacturing franchise agreements all over the world. So people would manufacture my products in other countries and pay us a licensing fee, and we would put our brain power on the cloud, and they would use that brain power to build our products and services. But I would go to places like Jordan, and a typical North American would walk in and say, "We know the right way to do things." And I would walk into Jordan and I would be so humbled to go, "Oh, wow, we are 20 years behind where this country is." And it was so humbling for me in that process to understand that on a global front, you need to be aware of what's going around the world, not just in New York today. That would be the wrong compass if that was your only measure of success. So complete commercial right now, this platform that I've set up behind me in the last couple months, what I've done is attracted experts from all over the world to share their best practice manufacturing advice. So last week we filmed Oscar Roach in Australia, how to develop standardized work in your factory. We filmed Doug Davey in South Africa. How do you get your new engineers to participate in the floor activities? And last Friday, I'm very proud to tell everybody, we filmed for Rob Singh out of Bangalore, teaching us how to get our machines to talk to each other within the factory. This is something that I'm so personally proud of, to say, leave ego aside, we can learn best practice from people all over the world today. There's an opportunity to not only make that connections, but in a very humble way, to walk into somebody else's country or somebody else's house and say, wow, I have something to learn right now. And that's what this does for us. This first makes the connection that builds the relationship that allows that to happen. And if you can set your ego aside for 5 minutes and say, somebody can genuinely teach me how to do better, there's a world of opportunity that's now at our fingertips.
Deepak?
Yeah. I think I would more come in from our experience in rolling out some of the solutions, Industry 4.0 solutions using our IoT platform. And one very important case study, if you would wish to call it, is the rolling out of the digitizing the entire quality cycle of a tractor manufacturer, which is very, very, very similar to an automotive industry today. They have rolled out a system. Is there some way that I can present a single slide? Can somebody make me a presenter or something? Is somebody around? Or last time we were able to do it. I think somebody. Anyway, yeah, I wanted to put up a slide which would maybe convey this.
Try clicking on the share button, Deepak. You might be able to. There's a share button at the bottom.
Yeah, but
right next to the video.
I'm finding.
I think you have the sharing rights now, Deepak.
Okay, fine. Share web browser. Yeah. Share web browser, share content. Okay. Right, there you go. Are you seeing the content? No. Is it clear?
We can see
Yes.
it, Deepak.
Yeah, just give me a moment. Let me. Yeah. Yeah. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting solutions that we actually rolled out, which is where it's a live case where this has been. They have an OEM who actually sources parts from different suppliers. They have rolled the solution across 200 suppliers.
Deepak,
Now,
could you go full screen, please?
I'm full screen as we speak. I don't know if there is any other. I'm
Okay, please continue then.
I'm full screen. set it up.
You're sharing the, you're not probably sharing the full screen application.
You're sharing the, okay, maybe stop sharing. Let me try that. Share audio, video, share content, share content. How the now?
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, okay, fine. I was maybe chose the wrong window. Okay, right now, as I said, this is an actual case study where we have an OEM which gets parts supplied from different suppliers. Now, what the solution that we have done is the OEM, the quality control person or whoever it is, decides on the various parameters that need to be checked, not only at the end of the process, but even in process. He or she uploads the control plan. So he sort of decides as to what needs to be measured and when. Now we have a inspector at the supplier's inspector who is at the shop floor. He has a tablet in his hand, and he then sort of starts the measurement of a batch, and he starts measuring this. Now with the technology that we have, once he starts the measurement, the data that is read by the measuring devices, provided they are digital, of course, can directly be read by the tablet, and the data comes in here. So any measurement that is being made here is coming directly into the tablet. There are no duplicate entries or any writing mistakes or anything, no duplicate work. So as the measurement happens, the data comes into the tablet. So all the control plan parameters, be it what need to be measured at what frequency, what are the upper control limit, what are the lower control limits. If a reading is outside the upper and lower control limits, then what needs to happen? What are the reasons? You capture the reasons for the rejection and things like that. All these things happen here. Now, sitting here, the OEM can now see what is happening at the supplier and what is the inline quality of my part that could come into my shop floor 7 days from now or 10 days from now. Not only do I have that information, I also have insight into the process capabilities of the supplier, which makes it possible for me to collaborate with the supplier to improve his quality. Not all suppliers have the capability to analyze and do things and other things, but in the interest of the OEM can then collaborate and supply and help the supplier in improving the quality. Now, out of these 200 suppliers for which the solution has been rolled out, about 140 or 150 of them would be small and medium enterprises. They're very small shops with say 7 CNCs, 10 CNCs, supplying specific parts to the. So most of these users of this system are small and medium enterprises with a very minimal IT infrastructure. Some of them even not having anything, and also no very skilled operators. They do rely on very with lesser skill levels. So our experience is that if we actually look at coming up with solutions that are simple to implement, you don't need all those frills, which for want of a comparison, maybe you don't need an iPhone. If you're making only a phone call, you don't maybe need an iPhone. So if we could come up with solutions that are affordable and simple to implement, and by making it affordable, I'm not taking away the basic functionalities which are required to achieve some objectives. Now, obviously, as we go along, these suppliers, once they reach that, they could move into a further, more sophisticated solution. But at this point of time, they would find it very difficult to move to a very complex solution with a lot of infrastructure required. They may as well come to the level 2, level 3 before they move into level 5. So my experience with working with and these are Indian companies. We are also working on something of SMB in a box, which is typically 5 solutions in an IoT device, which we are actually trying to work with the US government, SESME. We're trying to run this out to some of the SMEs in US also. So for me, the way forward, or the way to do it, is to look at solutions which are affordable. If possible, do it yourself. Because as Randy, I'm again picking up the same thing. This is something which has revolutionized a lot of things, and as the moment you have these sort of mobile apps, as you call it, the training needed is minimal, and people are usually find their way around these solutions.
I think, thanks, Deepak. Keeping an eye on the clock, we have 7 minutes to conclude. But let me chime in one of the experiences I have quickly, because as Windsor, I have access to Stellantis OEM, ZF, which is a tier 1, and their suppliers. So let's see, a car, a steering assembly, and a tie rod. So we are going tiers. From the OEM's perspective, as Deepak has explained, definitely they want traceability, they want assurance, and they want endpoints. They want to know if supposedly a batch comes in of a subcomponent which is defective, at least which are the ones they can recall if they have to. And digitization is important. And in fact, Center of Digital Transformation, our hosts have also launched something called Digital Maturity Appraisal, which is out there to help Indian industries. And digitalization roadmap is becoming important for us to be able to participate in global supply chains, as I would say. And panelists can chime in on that. But also, I would like to see if there are any questions from the audience, and then probably we can go to any last remarks on the way, like what we can do going forward. What are the ideas we have, if we have any? Where can we take this forward? And in fact, Gaurav's idea was really amazing as a process going forward. What can we do going forward? How can we help digital maturity appraisal? How can we get firms to integrate with the global supply chain, Indo-Canadian supply chain? Anybody would like to chime in here? Gaurav, do you have something?
Yeah, I would like to walk away with one piece of advice to all the manufacturers. Let me just quickly, I'll not take more than 2 minutes. Let me share my screen. Are you able to see it?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, let me run this presentation. So as McKinsey says, the future of car buying is omnichannel, personalized, and fun. I think one of the things that all the automobile companies are doing is spend a lot of dollars in research and feedbacks from the users. And what I would like to give the advice is, if you look at the customer journey of buying a car, it starts from awareness. A lot of dollars goes from marketing into buying, and then the whole discoverability, where you have to be on all the channels, your reputation in terms of your reviews and word of mouth, and that's where you have the conversion, and then the advocacy. One of the things that OEMs can do and create the value and innovation to the auto manufacturer is listen to what is happening in this customer journey and seek inputs from all the brands. So if you get the direct feedbacks from the end users, not the automobile industry, and you create a value and innovation in the supply chain, then you will be considered as one of the prime partners, and the automobile industry will actually come and speak to you that how did you even think about it? Because they work on this data. And you have access to all this data as well if you are able to spend some of the dollars around the research and seek that inputs from all the end users. There are lots of YouTube videos on how things are moving along, what they don't like about the cars, what they wish. And last but not the least, spending some dollars in the IoT side of the world. The next generation car will be more of a computer than an automobile. That would be the expectation from the customers as well in terms of the wants that you were saying that is increasing day by day.
Thanks, Gaurav. Rudra is chimed in. Do you have anything to say?
Yes. Yes, I'll quickly add to what Gaurav said. Deepak and others have also mentioned about the IoT. The key opportunity for the innovation seems to be when there is an electronic hardware component, and it might have the software also on it. How can the supply chain guarantee the integrity of that component during the entire transshipment? Right? So there is a need for that. Otherwise, that trust that we heard right at the beginning, which is what Darren said, brand, right? So if I'm going to be a supplier of a certain component, I got to ensure that it is traceable, not just to the origin part, but the integrity of that entire component in the entire journey of it, right? So if I cannot guarantee to my customer, then I'm failing on it. So while the IoT device-based automobiles are going to be ruling moving forward, but at the same time, how can we guarantee the integrity? That's a challenge that has to be understood well, and it has to be addressed well by all the component manufacturers. Right. So I'll stop with that comment, Deepak.
Going forward, what can we do to continue this panel beyond? I think audience can have access to all our coordinates, as well as can we come through with a group which can put some of us together, something like that, or any other ideas from the panelists, Darren, Randy, Deepak?
I would say that there is when we're thinking about an Indian-Canadian supply chain, there is an amazing window right now that is a window of opportunity that we're seeing a lot of disruptions from China to the West Coast of North America. And if we're thinking about a complete supply chain, and what that tells me is every time I see disruption, that presents an opportunity for something new to happen. So if there's the opportunity to create more supply chain between India and China using the ports of Montreal and Halifax, there's now a tremendous opportunity that I'm not sure how long will last to harness that opportunity as well. So I think we're well set for disruption and to make things happen.
Any last comments?
Just one, if I can, I'll be very brief. If I may, I know we're talking about digitalization and supply chain collaborations, international relationships building on history already between India and Canada, et cetera, et cetera. The one thing I wanted to note is that when we go down this journey of digitalization, that we still take a hands-on approach. We don't want to be hands-off, where we think that digital means we can be completely in front of our computers or in front of the machine and kind of be doing this in silos with horse blinders. It's even more important as we digitalize and we build our supply chain and this collaboration that we do it hands-on. What I mean by that is that we're in the shops. The leaders that are implementing is coming from the top down. The leaders are in the shops with the technicians. They're in the administrations with the engineers. It's got to be a hands-on approach. It's so crucial that we are still hands-on as we develop this. Again, digitalization does not mean hands-off. Thanks.
Deepak, any last words before we conclude?
I think, as I said, for this to be taken forward, I think we need to maybe start small, identify a niche area where this thing can be taken forward, and I don't think I have insights into which is that area that we need to start off. All those points which even Rudra said, or Randy said in terms of trust and other things, yes, that need to be built in. But to me, we need to start somewhere, look at some specific area where this can be, and then action it out. I think that for that we need, I'm sure CII can help to some extent to see what would be that area where we could start off this collaboration. It could be in any area, not necessarily in procurement of parts, but can be any area. It can be in expertise that I said. So if CII could help us in identifying some, I'm sure they will have some ways to identify the area that we need to start off. And if we can identify that, I'm sure this will go places. And I'll be very happy at some point of time to say that, hey, I started that.
And I think we definitely had a very interesting session, and we need to thank our host, Colonel Zaidi, for making this possible. And we hope we can continue it even further. We can continue this collaboration further. And Colonel Zaidi, over to you. Colonel, you are on mute.
My apologies. Thank you, Bharat. My team tells me that there are not any questions, but there are a few comments on the CII platform. But before I go to those comments, answering your question, yes, the contacts of all the speakers are available on the CII platform. If any of the participants
You're echoing. Colonel, you're echoing. Maybe multiple speakers are on, or
maybe your colleagues are also switched on.
Just a minute. I'll just get that. Is it better now?
yes, it is better.
Okay. So I was saying that the coordinates of all the speakers are available on the Hive. Again.
Yes.
Let me just check. Just give me a second, please.
So taking the quick opportunity here while the technical issues are being solved, what we can do is do something to continue this dialogue. And I can share a success story. One of the Windsor company is using the digital technologies they have a center in Chennai. So what it has provided them is the design is round the clock now. 8 to 10 hours it's in Windsor, and 8 to 10 hours it's in Chennai. So there are many opportunities appearing now that digital technologies get on sync. So we don't have to stop here. We definitely have to go forward. A good idea will be to work with CII and APMA and other associations and trade commissioners of Canada, amazing people there, to do something further. Colonel, back to you.
Is it better now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So what I was trying to say was that the coordinates of all the speakers are available on the CI Hive platform. If any of the participants wants to view it, you just have to go to the speaker section, identify the speaker that you want to connect. You can connect through us or directly as well. Now, secondly, my team told me that there are few comments rather than any questions here. First was a praise about Darren's words of wisdom. The 3 words of wisdom people have praised a lot, and they say that would probably help them a long way in going ahead. And there is another comment wherein, in fact, 2 people have separately brought out that they would like to go to a delegation to Canada to understand things. So probably that is the first step towards the collaboration part that we are talking about. And coming to Deepak's point, yes, we would like to continue this relationship, and let this be the first step. We will stay connected and see how best we can collaborate, both the countries, and see how we can take it ahead. With that, I would like to thank all the speakers here. Bharat, thank you for sharing this session. Randy, thank you for your remarks. Deepak, thank you for being there. Darren, as always, you have been a hit here. I would also take my time to thank Gaurav and especially Muni, who was kind enough to join us at such a short notice. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Everyone, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.